14 Points of Woodrow Wilson. The 14 points were a set of principles for peace outlined by President Woodrow Wilson in a speech before the U.S. Congress on January 8, 1918. The speech was given during World War I and was intended to set the foundation for a lasting peace after the war. The points were: Number 1, open diplomacy. Wilson called for an end to secret treaties and for all nations to conduct their diplomacy openly and fairly. Number 2, freedom of the seas. Wilson called for freedom of navigation for all nations on the seas, regardless of size or strength. Number 3, free trade. Wilson called for the removal of all trade barriers to promote global economic growth and stability. Number 4, reduction of armaments. Wilson called for a reduction of armaments to save resources and prevent future wars. Number 5, self-determination. Wilson called for the right of all nations, including colonies, to determine their own fate and form of government. Number 6, fair treatment of colonial peoples. Wilson called for fair treatment of all colonial peoples and for their self-government. Number 7, Russia. Wilson called for the restoration of Russian sovereignty after the fall of the Tsar and the Bolsheviks' takeover of the government. Number 8, Belgium. Wilson called for the restoration of Belgium's independence and sovereignty after it was occupied by Germany during the war. Number 9, France. Wilson called for the restoration of France's territory and independence after it was occupied by Germany during the war. Number 10, Italy. Wilson called for the recognition of Italy's right to its own territory and political independence. Number 11, Austria-Hungary. Wilson called for the dismantling of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the creation of new independent states. Number 12, Turkey. Wilson called for the end of Ottoman rule in the Middle East and the creation of new independent states. Number 13, the Middle East. Wilson called for an end to the political and economic exploitation of the Middle East and for the creation of a free, independent Arab state. Number 14, a League of Nations. Wilson called for the creation of a League of Nations to ensure the peaceful resolution of disputes between nations and to prevent future wars. The 14 points were widely accepted by the public and other leaders, but they faced opposition from some members of Congress, as well as from other nations. Ultimately, the League of Nations was established, but the U.S. never joined it, and many of the points were not fully implemented after the war.